The open ocean. Hi, I'm MBT. You know, a lot of people ask me, what is Plunder Patrol? Plunder Patrol is not only a deck, it's also a lifestyle. But most importantly, it's a deck. Today I'll be guiding you through the basics of that deck and teaching you how to become your own Plunder Patrol captain. Plunder is a type of deck that hasn't existed in a competitive context for years. It's an extremely adaptable mid-range deck that aims to overwhelm the opponent over the course of several turns with the combination of incredibly synergistic cards and powerful, repeatable advantage outlets. Unlike combo decks that aim to go plus 17 in a single turn, or control decks that aim to survive until the combo deck is out of resources, this deck attempts to establish a loop of draw spells and interruption that give it an engine control decks can't match, a survivability to beat combo, and the toolbox necessary to clean up rogue. If you're familiar, it's reminiscent of Burning Abyss around the time of Duelist Alliance. Unfortunately, that means you can't look up a combo guide and come away with a reasonable sense of how you're meant to be playing the deck, so hopefully this will fill in some of the gaps. Today we'll be looking at my deck list, some very rudimentary combos, the fundamentals of Plunder, and finally, some test hands. To begin, let's take a look at my personal Plunder Patrol build. It should be noted that Plunder Patrol is a deck that's intensely customizable, and as a result the choices reflected in this deck should not be taken as the gospel truth. I'll try to do as best I can in order to let you know which cards are more negotiable, which are must-plays, and what you should be considering when shaving some of the less playable cards. Additionally, this list is made to blind first. While Plunder Patrol can't put up multiple negates, it can do rudimentary combos, and more importantly, I don't think it's realistic that you'll be able to beat an Adamancipator or Eldritch turn 1 board setup with any sort of relative consistency. As a result, we are not playing the incredibly powerful blind second sweepers and kaiju that you will see in other builds of this deck. So, let's get started with the monsters and an apology for this thing. I can't figure out a way to get this leg out of the shot. We'll begin with 3 copies of Whitebeard, the Plunder Patrol Helm, and to those of you who are more budget-minded, I am so very sorry, you gotta play this card. Whitebeard, the Plunder Patrol Helm, is the most powerful Plunder Patrol by far. He has 2 incredibly potent effects, the first of which is that on your opponent's turn, he can tag out for a Plunder Patrol monster from your extra deck with the same attribute as a monster your opponent controls or has in their graveyard. If you do that, it equips itself to that monster. Its second effect is if it's sent from the hand or monster zone to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Plunder Patrol monster from your deck, and then you're locked into Plunder Patrols for the remainder of the turn. It's necessary to a majority of your combo lines, and it turns on a majority of the deck. The next, and second most important Plunder Patrol, is Redbeard, the Plunder Patrol Matey. This card, like Whitebeard, has the effect that, on your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can tag out into a similarly attributed Plunder Patrol extra deck monster. What's more, this card, when sent from the hand or monster zone to the graveyard, can equip itself to a Plunder Patrol you control. This is incredibly important if your opponent responds to the activation of your Redbeard effect with something like a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. At resolution of the chain, you can just activate the graveyard effect and equip it like nothing happened. Our third Plunder Patrol monster is the least impressive, but unfortunately is necessary, at minimum 2 copies. Bluebeard, the Plunder Patrol Shipwright, has an effect that activates in hand. If you control a Plunder Patrol monster, it's a free special summon, and one that activates if it's sent from the hand or monster zone to the graveyard. You can discard a card to draw a card. It's not extremely powerful, but it does turn on Whitebeard, and moreover, you're super light on Plunder Patrol names. Finally, Goldenhair, the newest Plunder Patrol, lives up to her name. She has 2 effects. The first allows you to discard a Plunder Patrol monster from your hand in order to special summon her from your hand, and the second allows you to discard any card while she's in the graveyard to special summon herself, locking you into Plunder Patrols for the remainder of the turn. This is necessary to most of your opens. You can normal summon Goldenhair, link her off for a Salamangreat Almirage by virtue of the fact that she has 0 attack, and then activate her graveyard effect to bring her back, enabling a link summon of Blackbeard, which thankfully only requires 1 Plunder Patrol material. She's necessary for almost every setup, and as a result, getting her into the graveyard is a top priority. These are the cards you absolutely have to be playing out of the monsters. The next are a little more fuzzy. I'm playing 3 copies of Mathematician. This is not normal among Plunder Patrol pilots. Usually in this slot you'll see Gen X Undyne, but both serve the same function to send Goldenhair, the newest Plunder Patrol, to the graveyard. The difference is that Gen X Undyne, 1, requires that you have a Gen X controller in deck, and 2, adds said controller afterwards. Many people favor Undyne because after resolution of their effect, you can pitch the controller to bring back Goldenhair, netting you fat equalization. Unfortunately, I don't think it's likely that you will be able to do that with any sort of relative consistency. I've drawn controller too many times, and this deck absolutely must play Pot of Desires. I am 100% afeared of banishing it. Next are the hand traps. We're playing 3 Ash. This card realistically could be any potent hand trap this format, and 3 Valor. I'm playing Valor over Infinite Impermanence for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's necessary for a very specific combo line involving Crystron Halqifibrax, and secondly, a significant amount of your drawing occurs on your opponent's turn. Every one of the Link monsters, Blackbeard that is, when its effect is activated, draws you a card after resolution. You'd much prefer that card either to be a Plunder Patrol, which will turn on the extra deck plunders, or a hand trap you can activate immediately so it's not just rotting in your grip until your opponent allows you the ability to go to draw phase. Effect Valor is an imperm you can activate immediately. And finally, I'm on 3 copies of Silent Angler. I absolutely believe that Totally Awesome is a good enough boss, and as a result I'm playing rank 4 waters that summon from the hand in order to enable it. Now let's take a look at the spells. First is Plunder Patrol Shipyard, and 1 copy of Terraforming with which to find it. Now Shipyard can be a little difficult to understand. As a result, I'll go over it right here. It's got 2 effects. The first of these 2 effects is to discard 1 card in order to search a Plunder Patrol card, not necessarily a monster, from your deck to your hand. As with any discard outlet, this is a fantastic time to trigger the effect of Whitebeard. Its second effect is a little more wordy. If it's in the graveyard, you can target 1 Plunder Patrol card in your spell and trap card zone, including monsters that are now being treated as equipped spell cards via their own effect, such as Whitebeard or Redbeard. Return this card from your graveyard to your field spell zone set, and if you do, return the targeted card to your hand. Many opponents will mess this up, attempting to Mystical Space Typhoon the card that's been targeted, but the return is not contingent on the card returning to hand. This is a great way to get monsters that are in the equipped spell zone back to the hand to activate their effects again, or to reset cards like Emblem of the Plunder Patrol, which you can just play again afterwards. Shipyard is tough to get rid of. We're playing 3 copies of Emblem of the Plunder Patrol, a testament to just how broken equipped spells have to be to see any play. This card can be equipped to any Plunder Patrol monster. You contribute the equipped monster in order to special summon from your extra deck a monster with the same attribute as any monster on the field or in any graveyard, and if you do, equip the original equipped monster to that card and it gains 500 attack. This gets crusty in the mirror. You'll notice the word your does not appear on this card. As a result, you can equip your opponent's Plunder Patrol monsters, tribute their monsters, and go into monsters from your extra deck. Finally, we're playing 1 copy of Plunder Patrol Ship-Shape Ships Shipping. This is the fusion spell for Plunder Patrol lists, but it's rarely what it's used for. This is just an extra flexible one-of. It's a fantastic card to get into the graveyard, as it can be banished in order to equip a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck to a face-up Plunder Patrol you control. For more generic cards, we're on 3 copies of Pot of Desires. This deck lacks the advantage loops in the opening stages of the game that other decks inherently have. As a result, you will have to play cards that are pretty high risk, like Pot of Desires, in order to find really, really powerful opens. Now, what's good about this list is there are very few one-ofs, and as a result, you're not going to banish any critical combo pieces. Speaking of one-ofs, we're on 1 copy of Foolish Burial to send a Goldenhair to the graveyard, and 1 copy of Card Destruction. I think I'm the only person playing this. You don't necessarily have to do so. I like this card a lot. This deck has the possibility to brick. Card Destruction is a way to reset your hand that triggers Whitebeard, and more importantly, gets your opponent's monsters into the graveyard so you can have attributes out of the starting gate instead of waiting for them to commit to plays. Finally, for trap cards, we're on 3 copies of Plunder Patrol Booty. This card is an absolute house, an insane playmaker, but very difficult to understand. It allows you to declare an attribute, then target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. That monster becomes that attribute until the end of the turn, And then afterwards, you can special summon a Plunder Patrol from your graveyard. This is fantastic in combination with cards like Whitebeard, which allow you to tag out of Whitebeard or get more material from its effect, and end on really powerful extra deck bosses in the process. Now the downside is, if you are ever out of Plunder Patrol monsters during your end step, this card goes to the graveyard. Finally, we're on 3 copies of Solemn Judgment because I'm blinding first and I don't want to have to play through Haymakers. Next, let's take a look at the extra deck. First, 3 copies of Blackbeard, the Plunder Patrol Captain. This card is immense. It is critical to almost all of your plays, and it's important that you get at least one of them out the normal way. It can be made with any monster plus a Plunder Patrol monster and has the following effect. As a quick effect, you can target an effect monster you control, special summon from your extra deck a Plunder Patrol monster, and then equip the monster that you targeted to it as an equip spell. You can then draw 1 card. Now, there's a couple of things you should note about this. Firstly, it can target itself. Routinely, Blackbeard will be the equip spell for the monster you summon from the extra deck. Secondly, it draws a card. This is a double-edged sword. Firstly, if you're out of Plunder Patrols because you used them for setup or link summoning, it's a great way to potentially scum one off the top of your deck so your extra deck monsters remain online. But secondly, it can be ashed. So, don't let your opponent ash it. Next, Salamangreat Almirage for the aforementioned combo, in which you can send a normal summoned copy of Golden Hair to the graveyard, then summon her back via her own effect, link summoning a Blackbeard with the Almirage plus the Golden Hair, and Halqifibrax. I'm sorry, yes, we're playing Halq. The card's just absolutely bonkers. There are a couple of very specific combo lines that I'll walk you through that use this card specifically, but he's just too good to ignore. For Xyz, we're on 2 copies of Plunder Patrol ship Moark. Moark is the Dark Plunder Patrol monster, so if your opponent is using Dark attribute monsters on their field or in their graveyard, this is something you can easily access. It, as a quick effect, provided it has a Plunder Patrol attached to it, can discard a Plunder Patrol card in order to banish a monster your opponent controls. This is a fantastic form of removal, especially in a format where Eldritch is a preeminent threat. Now, notably, this will add a Plunder Patrol spell or trap from your deck to your hand only after that effect resolves. Again, unfortunately, it can be ashed. If you hard make this card, it's got a Dingirsu-like effect that prevents destruction. More on that a little later. We're also playing Totally Awesome and Bahamut Shark because this deck does have a lot of 4s and routinely ends on a couple of them. Next are the fusions. We're playing exactly 1 Plunder Patrol ship Liss. Plunder Patrol ship Liss is an anomaly even among plunders. Firstly, it's actually good. Secondly, you're not likely to summon it via its normal mechanism. Plunder Patrol shipping is just not good enough to be able to access with any sort of relative frequency, and as a result it will be very hard to bring this card back once it's gone from the field, as it hasn't been properly summoned. This card does 2 things. Firstly, it can negate monster effects and destroy the monster who activated them, an incredibly powerful effect, but one that notably is not, like the other plunders, only quick provided you have a Plunder Patrol equipped. The only upside you get for equipping a Plunder Patrol is adding a Plunder Patrol afterwards, just like cards like Moark or Bran do. Additionally, it has a second effect. During the main phase, you can summon from your spell and trap card zone a Plunder Patrol that's currently being treated as an equip spell. This is a fantastic ability that many people forget about. It's a great way to get almost infinite Whitebeard activations, Blackbeard draws, and the like. Finally, for Synchros, we've got 2 copies of Plunder Patrol ship Bran. This card is fantastic. Like Moark banishes monsters, this card banishes spells and traps. And like Moark nets you spells and traps for the activation of its effect, this card nets you monsters. It's a great way to get Whitebeard into hand, and a fantastic way to play in a format full of Ash Blossoms. Often your opponent will ash something like your Blackbeard, only to face down a Bran in their draw phase. Finally, we're playing 1 Crystron... oh god, I'm gonna mess this name up. Quariongandrax, the XL Synchron, and 1 of this card. Quariongandrax. Oh god, please don't roast me in the comments. These cards are part of a combo that I'll show you momentarily. We'll first take a look at your bread and butter Halqifibrax combo. All you'll need to perform this is a copy of Whitebeard the Plunder Patrol Helm and any extender. For simplicity's sake, let's say we've drawn the worst one. We'll begin by normal summoning a copy of Whitebeard, the Plunder Patrol Helm, then special summoning a copy of Bluebeard, the Plunder Patrol Shipwright. Because Whitebeard is a tuner, we can perform a link summon using these two cards of Crystron Halqifibrax. Now, activating the effect of Whitebeard, the Plunder Patrol Helm will of course lock us into Plunder Patrols for the remainder of the turn. But if we activate it as Chainlink 1, and Crystron Halqifibrax's effect is Chainlink 2, we can summon an Effect Veiler, or any level 1 tuner. Can you think of another one that might be playable? Alongside a copy of Redbeard. That's the combo. That's it. On our opponent's turn, we'll tag out of Crystron Halqifibrax as soon as they commit to a normal monster, let's say, for example, an A-lister, to go into a copy of Crystron Quandanx. Once that's resolved, we'll activate the effect of Redbeard in order to tag out into a dark Plunder Patrol monster from our extra, chaining the effect of Crystron Quandanx. From here, we'll sink a 4, a 1, and a 4 to the graveyard, notably 2 tuners among them, to make Crystron Quariongandrax, butchering that name, as well as Plunder Patrol Ship Mowerk. Notably, not only will the effect of Quariongandrax banish 3 monsters our opponent controls or has in their graveyard, but Matey's effect in graveyard will trigger, equipping it to the Mowerk and making its monster banishing effect live. Our second showcase is less of a combo and more an application of Plunder Patrol. This is how you can, for example, access interaction on your opponent's first turn, even if they don't commit to any hand traps or anything on the field. To access this, you'll need a copy of Goldenhair, a Whitebeard, and any extender. For simplicity's sake, let's again say that we found the worst one. We'll begin by normal summoning a copy of Goldenhair. We'll then special summon the extender from our hand. Because Goldenhair is a monster with less than 1,000 attack and has been normal summoned, we can send her to the graveyard in order to make Salamangreat Almirage. Next, we'll activate the graveyard effect of Goldenhair, pitching a Whitebeard in order to special summon her from the grave. Notably, this will lock us into Plunder Patrol for the remainder of the turn. We'll activate the effect of Whitebeard in graveyard to summon a copy of Redbeard from our deck. From here, we can take the 2 monsters that were originally on the field, Goldenhair and the extender, and either overlay for a copy of Mowerk, or synchro summon a copy of Bran, depending on the matchup. Next, we can use Redbeard and the Almirage to link summon a copy of Blackbeard from our extra deck. You may notice that while the Mowerk does have material attached, it doesn't have an equipped Plunder Patrol. That's no problem, as next we'll activate the graveyard effect of Redbeard in order to equip it to the Mowerk. And there you have it, a targeting banish even though your opponent didn't commit to the board at all. We've also got the Blackbeard for follow-up in order to go into a more specific boss once we see what they're up to. Finally, though pretty much every hand makes him, and the lines are pretty self-explanatory, I might as well show you a low-investment way to make totally awesome. For the purposes of this example, let's pretend we drew a Goldenhair, 1 extender, sorry Bluebeard, we're going for the worst one again, and a card to discard. We'll begin by normal summoning a copy of Goldenhair. Next, we'll special summon a copy of Bluebeard, and what do you know? Both these cards are level 4. We'll overlay for our favorite rank 4, Bahamut Shark, and then activate its effect, detaching Goldenhair specifically, in order to summon the boy. Totally Awesome is looking fantastic, and slightly lonely. Vote frogs, everybody. Next, we'll discard the card in our hand in order to summon back Goldenhair, locking us into Plunder Patrols for the remainder of the turn, before link summoning with our non-prohibitive boss, Blackbeard. This allows us to put up negation pre-Nibiru and ensure that our Blackbeard will resolve when our opponent decides to commit to a normal summon. As soon as you have any information about the deck your opponent is playing, you should be asking yourself, what can I expect from my opponent? Every single Plunder Patrol Ship extra deck monster is good versus a different strategy, and isolating which one is the best versus your opponent is critical to winning the game. For example, against Altergeist, Plunder Patrol Ship Bran is fantastic. They have a real problem with an extremely beefy boy who banishes spells and traps. That said, Geist doesn't have a fire monster they are liable to get into the graveyard outside of Ash Blossom or Salamangreat Almirage. Therefore, as soon as you ascertain what your opponent is playing, you should be either reserving powerful effects like Plunder Patrol Ship Booty to manipulate the types to be what you need, or using Emblem of the Plunder Patrol in conjunction with your own Almirage to get a fire into the graveyard and a Bran onto the board, or you should be hard-making Plunder Patrol Ship Bran, ideally with the copy of Redbeard so it can immediately equip itself and turn its quick effect on. Over the course of a long game, you should be attempting to get a Whitebeard, a Redbeard, and a Goldenhair into consistent rotation every turn. This will form a resource loop that is almost impossible for opponents to overcome. Each one of these monsters has extremely specific and extremely powerful effects. Whitebeard's ability to tag out into a monster from your deck every single turn means that summoning it off of something like Liss or Booty is necessary in order to get the most interaction over the course of one of your opponent's plays. Redbeard is not only powerful insofar as it can tag into extra deck monsters, it's also powerful in that hard making something like a Bran with this monster will net you its quick effect as it activates its effect in the graveyard. And Goldenhair is necessary not only to ensure you always have a Plunder Patrol on your side of the field, but also to trigger the effect of cards like Whitebeard if they're locked in your hand. This deck puts out damage like nobody's business, but it's kind of hard to count it. Recognize that Plunder Patrol Shipyard usually represents between 1,000 and 3,000 damage based on how many cards you have in your spell and trap card zone, as it gives every Plunder Patrol monster you control 500 for each one. Some static buffs, like Plunder Patrol Ship Bran, buff the entirety of your Plunder Patrol crew minus itself by 500. Emblem of the Plunder Patrol gives the monster it's equipped to 500 attack. When it tags out, it gives them 500 attack, and it represents an additional 500 with things like Plunder Patrol Shipyard. Of course, Shipyard does not care if the cards in the spell and trap card zone are spells and traps or monsters like Redbeard. Use this to your advantage to put up more damage. Finally, because Blackbeard's effect is quick, you can attack for 2100 with a Bran on board, then tag out in the battle phase for another Plunder Patrol to assemble a quick and cheeky lethal. Finally, I'll show off the cutest interaction the deck is capable of. Just like Ritual Beast, you can dodge your own Nibiru. As Chainlink 1, you activate Redbeard, the Plunder Patrol matey, and as Chainlink 2, you activate Nibiru, the Primal Being. Nibiru will resolve, tributing the Redbeard, but because Redbeard doesn't need to remain on field, you can resolve its effect to summon a Liss. Wouldn't you know it, all of a sudden, your opponent controls a Light-type monster. After that chain is done resolving, because Redbeard went from the field to the graveyard, it can then equip to the Liss, turning on all of its effects at maximum capacity. So now that we know a little bit more about the deck, let's do some test hands. Obviously, turn 3 is going to be the pivotal turn in any Plunder Patrol game, but let's see what we can get accomplished turn 1. Oh god, this is not a good one. A lot depends on this Pot of Desires, so let's go ahead and fire that off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See what we banished. Don't do this, folks. You will just tilt yourself. Okay, no 3 ofs. Here we go. Not good. Oh! You are kidding me! Okay, let's not get tilted. This is still doable. Like most hands, this does the Bahamut Toad line. We'll begin by normal summoning a copy of Redbeard, and then special summoning a copy of Silent Angler. From here, we can overlay for a Bahamut Shark. We can activate its effect, ideally pitching the Redbeard. Having it in graveyard is just fantastic for a Totally Awesome. And then we'll fire off a Foolish Burial to get ourselves a copy of Goldenhair into the graveyard. There we go. And you know what? I think we can probably afford to spare one of our 3 Effect Veilers to get this card out of the grave. And then with 2 materials, one of which is a Plunder Patrol, we can make Blackbeard. So this is pretty good. We've got 2 Monster Negates in our Effect Veilers, but also an Omni and Totally Awesome, and Blackbeard can potentially set things up later. For my own grim sense of satisfaction, let's see what happens if we would draw off the top, activating Blackbeard's effect on our opponent's turn to move into an appropriately attributed Plunder Patrol monster. Ah, thank God. That's a fantastic one. We can pitch this card in order to interact with our opponent via a Mowork or a Bran, then reset it by returning the Blackbeard. We can draw for turn and find a Solemn Judgment. If we are allowed to get to our draw step, we can activate Shipyard, getting a Whitebeard so we can pitch it for the Goldenhair, and by that point we're off to the races. So, one of the worst hands the deck can produce, but still ended on a pretty competent end board, and ability to play a massive turn 3. Alright, let's try that again, and hopefully not draw 3 Effect Veiler. Shipyard, shipping, Shipyard again, Math, and Whitebeard. This is actually completely fine. This is way more than good enough. Yeah. So, we have a couple of options with this hand. If we want to go for the Shipyard search first to find something like a Bluebeard, we can do the entire Halka Fibrax line. But in lieu of that, I think I'm going to go for a more repeatable setup, given that the contents of our hand aren't very impressive. They're just Plunder Patrols. We're going to lead with a copy of Mathematician. We're going to send Goldenhair to the graveyard. We'll activate Goldenhair's graveyard effect, pitching Whitebeard, and we are locked in to Plunder Patrols for the rest of the turn. We'll activate Whitebeard's effect. I'm going to get a Redbeard from deck. Now, the reason I prefer this line in this instance is not only do we now have access to all of the Plunder Patrols we want in rotation, we have so many Plunder Patrol cards in hand, we will always have material to discard for our powerful Synchro and Xyz monsters. So we're going to link the Math and the Goldenhair off for a copy of Blackbeard. And then we can activate Plunder Patrol Shipyard, use its effect, pitching a Shipyard, and find a copy of Plunder Patrol Booty. And this is about as powerful a setup as we could hope for playing just Plunder Patrol cards. We've got a hand of Shipping, one of the Plunder Patrol cards where we actually actively want it in the graveyard. We can tag out with Blackbeard into something and draw a card off the top. An Ash Blossom in this instance, a hand trap we can activate immediately. We can tag out into something with Redbeard. We can flip up Booty in order to bring back the Whitebeard that's in our graveyard. And then we can use Whitebeard's effect to tag out into another monster, all of which will have a ton of attack because we've got a Shipyard on our side of the field. So yeah, very happy with this setup. Well, we've come a long way, but before we close up Ship Shop, I do want to give a quick shout out to other builds you may want to consider. You could blind second and play evenly matched Storm and Kaijus as a great way to ensure a turn 1 pop-off, as well as make up for this archetype's lack of playables. You could play a more dedicated Hauka-Fibrax combo, which would enable you to go through the same O-Lion setups I'm sure you are sick to death of. And if you play the Phantom Knights, it's a great way to make Cherubini, who can send Goldenhair. Hopefully this video has been a suitable introduction. What frustrates me is that this deck is clearly extremely powerful, but it lacks the captains necessary to pilot it to a top finish. I'd recommend checking out Pack Official YouTube's channel for more videos of the deck in action, joining the Plunder Patrol Discord to ping your ideas off fellow pilots, but nothing, and I mean nothing, will do it more justice than shipping up yourself. See you on the 7 Seas.